In the grim winter of 1692, Salem village was consumed by fear, as young girls' strange fits ignited accusations of witchcraft. Neighbors turned against neighbors, and under the relentless gaze of Puritan leaders, the accused were tormented, prodded for confessions, and marked as agents of the devil. Shackled and condemned, they were led to Gallows Hill, where slow, agonizing deaths awaited. In the end, Salem's own hysteria had become the true evil, leaving a haunted silence and a dark legacy born of fear turned deadly.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast, one where I've laughed 16 times before I started. My name is Nick, who can't help but laugh, and with me is the venerable Bert.
Venerable?
You know that one?
You know I don't, Nick. I appreciate the fact you ask me every time, though. I don't know none of these.
Sometimes you do.
Occasionally. Very rarely.
Sometimes.
If I was a betting man, I'd say 5%. That's giving me like 3%.
I think that's probably accurate. But I mean, these aren't meant to be normal. They're supposed to be weird. And I've been surprised that I've been able to keep this up for so long.
No,
like
more than me, Nick.
These.
The first time you did it, I'm like, this is kind of brave right here. This might be a short run podcast.
Yeah, I know. It was a bad precedent to set, but I mean, eventually I'll run out, but I'll reuse some. No one's going to know.
No one will know.
No one's keeping track of this. Right?
It's impossible.
Yeah. Would you like to know what venerable means?
Nope. Just kidding. Yeah, no, I want to know. Yeah. Okay.
It means worthy of respect due to dignity or age.
This was an accurate one, Nick.
I was like, I hope he ain't sensitive to that age part, because I mean we're pretty much the same age, so he's probably not.
No, trust me, I say I'm old and wise all the time. Speaking of which, the shirt that you got on, Cannibal Corpse.
Yes, Cannibal Corpse.
What is Cannibal Corpse?
Do you know them?
No, I don't know.
That's a band.
You know what that looks like?
Oh, where is it? Right there. What?
The dude from Tales of the Crypt.
It sort of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I'm kind of glad that it's not showing the bottom there. Because he's cannibaling.
Oh, dang. Savage.
Yeah.
Got the savage.
Yeah, right before we come on here, I thought, should I change this? I'm like, no, that's just a zombie.
Yeah, it's just a zombie's fine.
That's with our stuff.
Yeah, it's totally
that's
fine.
With our stuff.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Have we ever talked about zombies?
No.
I mean, like, as part of something else, I think we have mentioned it a little bit.
I'm sure we have.
Yeah, but not a whole thing on it.
No.
Huh.
Like, I don't even think we've talked about it in a heavy segment before.
No. And I know that you, or at least you used to love like zombie games and stuff like that. Oh, yeah,
that's my bang zone. I used to be a huge Walking Dead fan.
Right. Have you stopped watching? Or because I know they're still doing that stuff.
Show's over.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the last season.
They got spin-offs and stuff.
Yeah, no one watches the spin-offs, Nick. That's all facade.
No.
The moment they finish that show, I'm like, well, time to move on.
Yeah.
I almost moved on.
I was watching it until the Glenn thing happened.
Yeah, I was going to say, I almost moved on after the Glenn thing. I'm like, well, I'm done. This is stupid.
I don't even remember why it made me so mad, but I was just like, I've had enough of this.
It made everybody mad.
It looked kind of silly, to be honest.
They lost 2 major players in the show back to back, same night. And then there was a series of others.
I liked Abraham.
Yeah, Abraham, that one ticked me off.
I
think what it was Glenn was like that lovable character that I think everyone loved.
Yeah.
And they're like,
he was the glue.
Damn. Yeah, he really was in a lot of ways.
And you know what? They kept teasing it too. Like they remember that thing where he crawled under this thing after they pretty much made it look like he was.
Yeah.
dead. So
Yeah, and you're like,
I don't know. They just handled it all wrong.
They did. The other one that ticked me off was Carl.
Oh yeah,
That one ticked me off too.
Poor old Coral.
Coral.
No.
Yeah, that one ticked me off. But they say that there was a dispute between him and the network. That's what happened there. So.
Oh really?
Yeah, I hate when that stuff happens because I really
like the kid.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he was turning out to be good. I thought he'd take over almost.
Me too. That would have been the correct way to spin it off. And then the entire last season, the main character that's been there since day one, gone. And I'm like,
what was that about?
I don't know what they were trying to do there. Apparently he didn't want to do it at the same level. And they talked about doing movies. And I'm like, this is stupid. Just no. Like you screwed it completely up at this point.
It went far enough.
Yeah.
It went far enough. And it stopped being anything about, it was just all about problems between people. It wasn't even have anything to do with an apocalypse anymore.
And then it just turned into drama. And I'm like, I just don't want to deal with the drama. The drama's too much.
It really was. It did turn into drama. Actually, 100%. We were talking about it like we don't like drama.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't like that stuff.
Very drama-free guy. If there's drama, I'm probably checking out of it. I just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
That's me, and Nick, coincidentally. This is why Nick and I are so good at this. We're good with each other because neither one of us wants any kind of drama.
Yeah, we don't want any drama.
No.
Like we want a peaceful life.
Correct.
With spooky stuff.
Correct. With all kinds of spooky stuff, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. Well, I'm excited. This is Nick's week. It's cool when I get to lean back. I don't have to really do much. I just have to listen, see what's going on, tell a point of view. This is exciting for me. I like these.
And I think we should do a full disclosure here. I told you what this is going to be about in advance.
Nick
this time.
did.
Because I am doing this because it's on a topic that my mother wanted to know more about. So I wanted to present this.
Hi, Miss Nick.
She'll appreciate that. But if anyone doesn't like it, well, that's too bad. It's not for you. It's for my mom.
Listen, if you don't like it, unsubscribe, you loser.
Yeah. Or double subscribe. That'll teach us.
Because Miss Nick, listen, if Miss Nick likes it, Bert likes it.
That's right.
It's required.
Thank you.
Miss Nick, we've been waiting for this moment when you would join us on a voyage, and now you are. Sorry, this is the best we can do. Sorry.
It's just this one. I know she don't like the spooky stuff like I do. I don't know how she ended up with such a spooky son, but
I mean,
that's all right.
Listen, hey, sometimes even if you don't like something, you dabble into it a little bit, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. She does like history, and this is going to be a chunk of history.
We like that. History is my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked history too. That's like one of the few classes I paid attention in.
Yeah.
In school.
History, I always said if there was 3 channels, they're like, you can only have 3 channels. History Channel.
Yeah.
Discovery Channel.
Oh, I love Discovery.
And I used to say A&E because A&E had all those, the
ghost shows.
It has a lot of the ghost shows, but it also had like the Moonshiners. It had like Deadliest Catch. But now I think they've all switched to Discovery and Discovery Plus and all that.
Yeah.
But like A&E had all the ghost shows, and then they had the beginnings of some of those shows. And I'm like, that's what I need in my life.
That all belongs to, so Discovery and probably A&E, that all belongs to Disney now.
I know. This is why it's so screwed up, Nick.
Yeah.
They're not paying our bills. You need to pay us, Discovery. Well, I guess Disney now, based on what Nick's saying, but Discovery needs to pay us. We've given too much press.
I love all of them. I would love to be sponsored by that.
Oh, me too.
Like I'm a big fan of all of that.
Me too.
I'm telling you.
See, like I say, those 3 channels, if I just had those 3 channels back in the day, now A&E's kind of screwed up a little bit. They don't have all the fun stuff like they used to. Yeah,
I haven't, like when I had cable television or even satellite, back in the day. Like I watch everything online now on the computer, but back then A&E used to be where it was at, and the Discovery Channel too, of course.
Of course. Yeah, I feel like they're like the MTV when they went away from music videos and they started doing reality TV. I feel like that's A&E now.
Yeah.
But that's me.
That we lost our music channel was Much Music, and that went the same way. Reality TV and really nothing. Like they don't even have, they used to have a big building in Toronto that we all wanted to go see. They haven't even got that now.
Yeah, see, they screwed it up.
End of an era.
Oh, well. But
we lost mall culture. We lost our music channels.
Correct. It's all lame, Nick. This new age of kids is lame.
It is. Now we sound like real old people.
We do. Get off my yard, losers.
Yeah, get out of our yard. You're not getting your ball back.
Mine now.
But since we're talking back in time, I know what this is about. You know what this is about. Why don't we let everyone else in on the secret and play the first part?
Well, it's your lucky day. Nick said roll the film.
The bitter winter of 1692 in Salem village felt like a curse itself. Snow pressed heavily on the fields, blanketing the town in cold silence. In the flickering light of Reverend Samuel Parris's modest home, his daughter Betty and niece Abigail huddled close to the hearth. These girls, no older than 12, were behaving strangely. They cried out as if in pain, twisting their bodies unnaturally, clutching at their throats as if an invisible hand were choking them. They spoke of shadows and spirits, beings no one else could see. As word of the girls' affliction spread, other young women in the village began experiencing the same fits and visions. The Puritans, deeply fearful of any sign of Satan's influence, became frantic. Dr. William Griggs, the town's only doctor, examined the girls. When he found no medical explanation, he declared them under an evil hand. Witchcraft. That word ignited something dark in Salem. In terror and curiosity, the townsfolk demanded answers. Pressed to identify those responsible for their torment, the girls pointed trembling fingers at 3 village women. Sarah Good, a destitute beggar known for her sharp tongue. Sarah Osborne, who had lived an unconventional life, straying from the Puritan path. And Tituba, an enslaved woman from Barbados with a knack for storytelling and folk magic. In the Puritan worldview, these women were prime targets. Outsiders, strange, dangerous in their defiance. This was the spark that set Salem ablaze.
Man, based on that description, Nick,
now we know.
We would have been accused of being witches.
I definitely would have been accused. I mean, you've seen all these weird tattoos and
outsiders,
stuff.
Weirdos. That's us.
Yeah. I know. It reminds me of that part from The Craft. You've seen the movie The Craft? No. Back in the day. Oh, well, it's a bunch of these girls that discover that they can be witches. And do you know who Fairuza Balk is?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, she's an actress that used to be popular back then. She's right evil looking, almost like she's got that natural look. Well, should they get off the bus, and the bus driver's, look out for weirdos, girls, and she's like, "Mister, we are the weirdos."
That's awesome. See, that's the thing, Nick. When you look back then, 16, I know a little bit about the topic. Like you're obviously gonna run this one because I haven't researched this, but I did a small thing on my channel maybe a month ago where we talked about the witches and the witch trials and stuff like that, but I didn't go too in depth. It was like a 5-minute video or something. It was relatively short, but the interesting thing is when you hear about the witch trials and all the things that happen, like before I did research, I always thought there was like thousands of people Like that's the way they make it sound. It's like, yes, in Salem, there was all these people killed next. There really wasn't. There wasn't that many.
No, it wasn't many at all.
No.
Really?
No.
Now, it's spread out in some other places, but it really wasn't that many overall.
Yeah, it was very few.
More than there should have been.
For sure.
More than there should have been.
I don't think a male ever died from it, though. I think there was plenty of men that was accused of it. Yeah. But I don't think they did.
Hold on. I should correct something. Mm-hmm. There was a ton of people accused.
Yes.
And a ton of people imprisoned and stuff like that. But people being killed, it wasn't that many. More than it should have been. Yeah. But it wasn't as many as I thought there was.
I thought it was
like thousands.
That's what I thought. I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the way they make it sound like whenever you hear the stories.
Right.
They almost give the impression that it's like this manhunt. They was going after all these people and they were trying to hunt them down with dogs and pitchforks and all that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't like that most of the time. And it was amazing how many accusations there were. And it's like, let's say I got ticked off at Nick one day. I'd be like, you know what? I think he's a witch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how it kind of ended up.
Exactly.
You know, the crazy part of the Salem, though, I think I know how many people were executed. I don't know if you tell it later, but I think I know.
I have a very small number. What do you have?
I believe it's 20 that was actually executed.
I think that's around about what it was. We stick with this 3.
Yeah.
Throughout this podcast because I'm sort of trying to get the experience of that. But I think you're about right. It wasn't like when I thought back of it before I looked into this. Like I said, I thought it was thousands and I thought it was all over the place.
Yeah.
There's another fact that I think you're gonna find surprising as well. Because one of the main characters you always hear about in the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard of him or not. I won't bring him up yet, but it might be surprising that the information about him.
Well, another thing that's a misconception. See, I'm scared to say too much because I don't know what we cover and what we don't cover. Is the way that
it doesn't really matter.
The way that they died, I always thought was one way, and it was not the way I thought it was.
Oh no, it was a variety of ways.
Yeah, the vast majority though was by hanging.
Yes.
I always thought they all burned by fire.
Right. And that's what people showed a lot of times, but that was incredibly rare.
Yes.
That one. And a lot of people who did die, died not being executed, but as course of the interrogation.
Yes. Because there was tests.
There was tests that they could do.
Yeah.
And there was some brutal things that they used to do to try to force confessions, which actually killed people.
Yes.
On top of that.
Right.
And I don't go into that, so we can talk about that freely. Like one is they would press you between stones.
Yes.
To get you to confess. And basically if you confessed, they'd stop. But if you didn't confess, you'd probably die.
Correct. Which is crazy.
Right. And a lot of these tests were like this. Like you must have heard of the dunking one.
Yes.
The dunking chair.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a series of people that died
where they would lower you. Yeah, because one of the things was, and this was back before swimming was like a very common, like we have swim classes now. I don't know if that's everywhere, but it used to be you threw the witch into the river. And if she sank, she was innocent.
Yeah.
He or she.
Yeah.
And if they floated, it was the devil holding them up.
Right.
So that's a lose-lose scenario right there.
There's no win there. They're floating. It's a devil.
Right.
Oh, that one sunk. Well, dang, we can't find them now. But they were legit.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Like, well, it's better to kill a few innocent people than let a single witch go.
Right,
I mean, I'm sure that's what they were saying at that time.
Can't take no chances. I know there was a series of them that the men was getting mad if they thought their wife was having an affair, and they would accuse them of witchcraft.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of that too.
Yeah. I can see that happening. And like, I don't want to go too much into it, but the modern day equivalent of that is essentially like you see a lot of men end up unsubscribing their wife and then themselves.
Yes.
Like we had a big event here recently where that happened. And I mean, you know, if this was hundreds of years ago, they would have just accused him of being a witch.
For sure. 100%. I saw her casting a spell.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's essentially you've just unalived your wife as soon as you, or if you did confess, you might just be locked away
for the rest of your life
until you perished.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that better? Maybe. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't think they had a lot of retrials back then, Nick.
No. I've always thought of it like if I was on trial for being a witch back then, I would, I mean, if I knew it was hopeless, because it was essentially hopeless.
Yeah.
I would have got on the stand and been like, you're right. I am a witch. And if you don't let me go right now, I'm going to blast you all.
Exactly. I'm going to bring down
or
a
I'll do a
plague.
curse if you don't let me go.
Your children and their children will be plagued.
I wonder if anyone tried that.
I don't know.
They must have, right?
I'd be curious to see if that, I don't know. I didn't actually research that, Nick.
I specifically looked for that and I didn't find any of that business.
Man, that
but
cool.
I have read short stories where people who were accused were like, yeah, I am. And you're in a lot of trouble now.
The amazing thing is, and you're going to know probably a lot more about this than I do because I'm scared of it. But the new age witches nowadays, there's a lot of that goes on.
What, like cursing and stuff like that?
Yeah, man, like spell casting and stuff. Actually, I was going to do a podcast on a story that I had about this house that was haunted. Forget which house it was now, but the guy, he ended up, I think he lost his wife or something. They got divorced or she died or something. Anyway, he started dating this new woman, and she was like taking over parts of the business and all this stuff. And he woke up late at night one night. He goes, "Where's my wife at?" And he's like patting it down, and she's gone. And he gets up and goes into the garage, and she's in lingerie with a big old star with a circle around it in the middle, chanting this thing. And he saw this entity standing in front of this pentagram that's on the ground. Right. And from then he was a Christian man, like he was heavy in the church and everything. Right. And she never told him that she was a witch or any of that stuff. And she ended up cursing that house. Yeah, that's what that entire story was about. But it got so deep, I got scared, and I'm like, well, we'll come back to this.
Yeah. It's a complicated topic, though, because like you've got a few things. You've got like when we think of witch, we think of like making deals with devils and that kind of thing. But then you've got like what people want to call witchcraft, which is like Wicca and stuff like that. Yeah. Which is really nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's like it's almost like nature worship kind of thing. Yeah. But they still have curses and stuff in that, but they just don't believe, because I mean the devil is not in their religion. So they don't worship like a devil that we would think of.
That's true. They're true.
Like, but I mean, from another point of view, people say that like the modern version of what we think of the devil comes from the Green Man, who had horns and was like the nature thing that some of them do worship. So
correct.
It's a complicated topic, but most people, if you talk to, they're just like, well, this is, I don't do bad things because I think it comes back on me 3 times. And that kind of thing. But then you've got this fringe society there, like, yeah, I'm bringing forth demons and all that.
Here's how I look
stuff.
at it. And I'm not saying I'm right. All you witch ladies out there. Okay. Whatever.
You're going to get cursed.
Whatever. Listen, now, don't put that on me. Here's what I think.
Right.
We are friends. So don't curse me. Okay.
Oh, well, that's a good meet halfway kind of thing.
Yeah. Listen, we love everyone here. Okay.
Right.
As long as you're not trying to convert me. Okay. But,
oh, yeah.
But,
they ain't into that, I don't think. Not any of them.
No. But, I think that there is sometimes things that we think are find or not associated, but it doesn't mean they're not associated, right? It's kind of like if I had a religion, me, myself, and I, like the Church of Bert comes out, and I'm like, maybe I can get some collateral damage by not letting these people think that they're a part of my church, but they're able to do some of the things within my church, but they don't really know. Yeah. Like, I think some people by association might be dabbling in things they don't understand.
Right. And a big thing of like the regular, I'm going to offend people by calling these like the regular religions, like the not ones that some people might consider weird. So, you know, Christianity and stuff like that. A lot of it is like, you might not think you're worshiping the devil, but that's because you've been fooled.
For sure. Yeah.
Like that might be a religion, another religion's point of view of that kind of thing. But back when I was in college for a couple years, I lived with a bunch of like the good witches, like as roommates.
Yep.
And they would do, and my opinion of what they did was more like, actually, I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone, but it's almost like, it's almost like superstitions. Like if I jump over 2 of these rocks on the ground, I'm going to get good luck. Like they'd, burn a candle with a coin on it and they'd have hope that they'd have good financial fortune. It's almost like trying to control uncontrollable things that might happen in your life.
Yeah.
And they're not doing anyone any harm. They're just like, they're just doing little witchy stuff.
But what if they're doing it inadvertently?
That could be.
Does it make it any better that they don't know?
I think yes, because in my opinion, intention matters.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. But I think
I mean, we don't get to decide that.
We do not. But what I'm saying is, what if you made one of those girls mad and then they put like
they
a
might
curse.
Curse you.
So for them or for other people, they'd be like, Nick, you're just being superstitious, man. A witch can't do nothing. Next thing you know, a demon's knocking on your door because they cast a spell or a curse in this case.
Yeah. And they do have curses. They could do stuff.
But in their mind, it might not
They
be
think
true.
they can do stuff.
Yeah. But in their mind,
they think they can do stuff.
They might think that they can do stuff, but they might be like, know, it'd be cool if it works, but if it doesn't, I mean, I doubt it'll probably be like that, but then they might be dabbling in this. It's kind of like the people that goes, Ouija boards are fake. And listen, I agree. I don't think you can communicate with a Ouija board. You put 2 blindfolds on 2 different people, that thing ain't never spelling a word.
Yeah.
But does it open a door? That's the question.
Right.
And that's the question I don't want to answer.
And that would, I'm not worried about that. Like, we all have different opinions on this stuff, and until our final days, or till the day after our final day, none of us are going to know.
That's true.
I don't believe, me personally, I don't believe that burning a candle with a coin on it's going to help me make money.
Yeah.
That's my personal belief, but I can't say it don't.
That's true.
Maybe it does. Maybe it does. Like just on other things, like, I don't know that certain rituals that maybe a Muslim does make someone in control happy.
For sure.
Maybe it does. I don't think it does. Same with every religion.
For sure.
Like, there's stuff that I don't believe, but who am I? I don't know.
No. And that's the thing.
I can't say
know.
it don't.
We have to associate what we know and what we conceive based on what we've seen, right? We're all products of three things typically, regardless of what anyone wants to believe. I believe that everyone is conditioned based on three things. The first one is, what was your upbringing? And everyone goes, just because someone was brought up a certain way, it does, because it still instills the concepts, idea, and ideologies in their brain from the first day they're alive, regardless of what that is. Now, much like, you know, I came from a family where there was alcohol issues. Because I was raised in that, I could honestly take one of two paths, but probably not go down the center. Path A is I become an alcoholic. Option 2 is I stay completely away from alcohol because I'm scared I become an alcoholic.
Right. It does seem like it's one extreme or another with that too.
Correct. So depending on what you see as you grow up was one determination. The second one is your peer group. You show me someone's peer group, I almost always show you who they are, because their peers will help determine who they are, because we allow ourselves to associate with those sets of people. Right.
Well, because they'd fall in line with how you want life to be, right?
Regardless of what anyone says, the age-old quote of the flock quote, the
birds of a feather flock together.
Yes, correct. Flock together. You know, and that's not untrue. That's completely true. And I think the third thing is life experience. Those three things determines what everyone's ideology is. 100%. Now, I believe that life experience trumps them all. So you can be raised your entire life and see one thing, and then life experience goes, oh, wait, maybe this is different than what I thought, which is what makes this so fun, right? Like, we're going to go and start doing some ghost hunting next year. How exciting is that? Because now we both have these core belief systems, but that's going to morph as we go into that chapter of the podcast. And it'll probably change how we look at a lot of things, because it's like I told Nick a long time ago. If there's good, there's evil. If there's evil, there's good.
Right.
If we can conceivably, if we're inside of a house and we know it's myself, Nick, and my wife, and then we hear something walk beside us, we hear the individual footsteps. Like, it's one thing when you see it on a TV show. It's another thing when you watch it on a YouTube video. But when you're standing there and you see it, you go, oh, wait, there's something to this.
Yeah. And I think we've both had experiences where we're like, we can't say anything for certain. I know me personally, I can't say anything for certain when it comes to anything supernatural. Like, I'm someone who fully believes in science, but I can't say anything against this stuff. I know that this stuff exists. I really do. Because I've experienced it. And I don't think I've had that many brain fries that just happened to randomly happen that made me go temporarily insane.
Correct. But I think that influences other opinions too, because as you start asking more questions, well, then you start looking, you start diving for the answers. And the moment that you start diving for those answers, it takes you into other realms, especially when you get into religion and stuff like that. Because I tell people all the time, you want to find the most staunch when it comes to religion. When someone's facing death or their loved ones facing death, it's amazing how many people turn religious real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, I mean, it's in our nature to do whatever we can do and appeal to anyone who might have control to help on that kind of thing.
Correct. But we're kind of dabbling in that too, because it's like, okay, if we figure out for ourselves, in which we've had experiences, but we're about to go to two of the most haunted locations in the United States. One of them is probably top 10 in the entire United States.
I'm going in the portal.
But when you go to those places,
you're going to have to explain that to my mom.
But think about it.
He's like, where's Nick?
But like, here's the crazy part. When you think about it, We're going to a place where I've interviewed a guy that was bit, scratched, and burned while he slept. So people,
that's pretty serious.
Oh yeah. I mean, people can wake up and scratch themselves in the middle of the night. I've not done it, but you know, that's the excuse is, well, you scratched yourself in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But when you bite yourself
or burn yourself,
you burn your lip. Like that's not going to happen.
No.
So that really makes you question, why would something do this? It can't be of good intent. Okay. So it's from an evil intent, clearly. So if it's evil, is there stuff on the other side that's good? And if it's good, where does that put everything in perspective of life? That's where things really become questionable.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of these, new age religions and stuff come from, because they believe in the supernatural, but they have different beliefs of how it comes about. And I'm sure they feel like they're having some kind of success with it. So by that standard, that would confirm their belief, whether it's true or not.
Which goes back to
that's a whole other thing.
What we're talking about here. Because if you think about it, it all comes down when you look at the witch trials and all that stuff, when you look at Salem, these are people that had a very specific belief system that, most of these people, when this all started, and especially with the beginning of our story, right? Like the story that we just listened to,
right?
They had these thought processes. Now, where did those thought processes come from?
Right. Exactly.
So everything plays into this, the very things that we just talked about, but it's amazing the direction that, because there's going to be a lot of people that goes, see, this is what I'm talking about. And I had an argument I think it was last week with somebody on my channel of all things. It was a podcast I did on demon. There was a exorcism, and he goes, see, that's what I'm talking about. Those Christians and their forgivingness and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's not a religion thing. Like, you do understand, it doesn't matter what the religion is. It's a people thing. Correct. And that's the point I made.
Yeah.
Because even in the comments, I told the guy, I said, that's about as stupid as me saying, well, look at that sinner killing that sinner. It must be a sinner thing. No, it's not religion.
Right.
It's not credence. It's not a group of people. That's not to say that there's not ignorance out there. But that being said, like if you look at the Crusades, the Christian Crusades, right? Horrible blood spot in our history. But that being said, the thought process was, well, that's what we do. This is what we have to do for the kingdom, blah, blah, blah. That's every religion. It doesn't matter what the religion is. Yeah. The problem is if you don't associate with a religion, it's still happening. It's still happening. There's just not an association of a group.
It's a very human thing to have a fear of the other. Yeah. Like it's in our DNA that if we meet another tribe of people who are different from us, we would fight them.
That's true.
Like that was in our history how it was. And through most of humanity, that's how it was. Like, because it's not just religious things, because it's not like we have fighting between religions only.
Right.
In fact, that's becoming less and less frequent, but we have fighting between different communities. We have fighting amongst people of different races. We have fighting amongst people of different political agendas.
Correct.
We have, like in the UK, I might not have a good time because they burn down gingers' houses sometimes.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Because that would suck.
Yeah.
But it's a human thing to fear things that are different from you. And I think the only time we're being human and not animal is when we fight that urge.
Right.
And we do get along with people who we don't agree with or we don't look like, or, that's when we're rising above things.
You know what I learned a long time ago, Nick? I got 99 problems, but a witch ain't one. Okay. So
that's right.
Witches don't come after me. Okay.
Yeah, they won't. And the ironic thing about this story here is we're talking about Puritan villages.
Yeah.
Everyone in this entire village is a Puritan.
Right.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
They escaped Europe only to come here so they would have freedom to practice their religion. So 2 of the 3 people we're talking about definitely were not witches. Definitely were not.
Correct.
And the 3rd person was brought there against their will and was just practicing in a very kindly way their native religion.
Right.
So none of these 3 people are witches at all.
Right.
But you know a lot about kids. You've got kids. If you were to get angry at them, like visibly angry at them for doing something, I bet you could get them to, number one, blame anything on anyone else, whether it's true or not.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you came down there and they're like, who ate all my cookies? They're going to be in a lot of trouble. You, who was it? They're going to say any name but their own.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure of it.
For sure. Except for Grant.
So
Grant would admit it.
Oh, he'd be like, he'd just be like, yeah, and
that boy falls on the sword. No, he's so freaking hyper focused on not making anybody mad. That he'd be like, I did it. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Like, that's just his demeanor. That's just who he. Now, Lainey.
That's good though.
Lainey accuses people even when someone's not getting in trouble. Like she would just come home from daycare and she would we would see her trip and fall. And we'd be like, get up, go ahead. She goes, such and such did it. And I'm like, I just watched you fall. You did this yourself.
I know. You know what? My friend's kid, when he was younger, as long as his mom and dad weren't there, it didn't matter if there was like 3 or 4 others of us in the hallway.
Yeah.
He'd look at the wall, run face first into it, fall on his butt, and then scream that his sister did it.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, there's 4 of us here watch you did that.
Yeah. Listen, young kids are not the wisest. Okay. So.
Right. So you firsthand and I sort of firsthand have seen that if you pressure a kid.
Oh, yeah.
9 out of 10 of them are going to blame someone else.
Guaranteed.
And that's how this started, I think. Because these kids, maybe and we're going to talk about it later, maybe there was something wrong with them.
Yeah.
But in their moments of clarity, I think, or maybe even if they were having hallucinations, they might think of the last person who was mean to them.
Yeah.
Because their parents are like, you've got to tell us who did this or you're going to go to the down under. Please.
Yeah, you don't want to
go to hell.
You don't want to go to hell.
Yeah. Exactly. You better tell us who did this. Who's in league with the devil.
That's right.
Because this is you've heard me talk before of the satanic panic, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, they got these kids from daycare and they were just saying, they'd start off, did anyone at the daycare touch you or anything like that? And then kids would be like, no. And then they'd say, wasn't anyone mean to you at all? And they're like, well, maybe this person was mean. And then they're like, oh, that person was mean. Maybe when you were bad, sometimes they pinched you.
Right. Yeah.
And the kids would be like, yeah, maybe they pinched me.
Correct.
And they're like, maybe if you were real bad, they take you in a car and take you to a devil worshipping thing in the forest. The kid's like, yeah, that probably happened.
Right, exactly.
And
it's what our FBI does.
So you can see how, right. Actually making a murderer, you see him do it to that
kid,
that fellow who had some learning, disabilities.
Correct.
They did that to him.
That's what the police do when they interrogate. And that's legal, by the way.
Right. That's the intent of it, to get a confession.
Correct. Which is amazing to me, because how many people give false, they're sitting there getting accused and they're just giving false information.
So many. Like if you interrogate someone long enough, they'll just say it.
Oh yeah. And then you've got the people that they just admit to it and there's no way they could have done it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that happens without interrogation sometimes.
Correct.
Like people call in and admit to this stuff. So whether these kids are just like, it started off as a harmless prank or they were hallucinating or something was happening. It's easy to go from A to B to say, hey, they just started accusing people because they didn't want to get in trouble for it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what happened. Regardless of the cause, the effect was that they were pressed to say who's responsible for this, and they gave names.
Oh, exactly.
But let's go a little further in the narrative and see what more we can learn.
Let's take a little looky-see.
The trials began in a small, dim courtroom, crowded with neighbors, ministers, magistrates. Everyone had come to witness the downfall of Satan's disciples. Sarah Good stood before the court, a frail figure with hollow cheeks and angry eyes. Her defiance only deepened the court's suspicion. The judges interpreted her poverty and bitterness as evidence of a pact with the devil himself. Next came Sarah Osborne. Her crime was different. She had dared to defy societal norms, cohabitating with a man out of wedlock. The court saw her as morally corrupted, an easy vessel for evil. But it was Tituba who sealed their fates. Under intense questioning, she confessed not only the witchcraft, but the strange visions of black dogs and spectral hands guiding her toward dark deeds. She spoke of flight, magic powders, and sinister gatherings in the woods. Tituba's confession was the Pandora's box the judges needed. Salem descended into chaos. Neighbor turned on neighbor as accusations spread like wildfire. Martha Corey, a devout churchgoer, was accused. Rebecca Nurse, a saintly older woman who had never harmed anyone, was definitely not spared. Men, women, and even children were named. As the trials grew from hysteria into something ritualistic, nearly sacred, a purging of the village's evil. Each accusation, each conviction, served only to make the village's fears grow. For if witches could hide even among the most respected members of society, was anyone really safe?
So there's a few things there, and I'm going to give you some additional history about Salem once we get into this, but this goes to show they were accusing really upstanding people of being witches.
Yeah.
Like, no one was safe from the accusations.
No, and this is what happens when it gets into a case of group mentality, us versus them mentality. Mm-hmm. Because at that point and it doesn't matter, it goes back to what we was talking about earlier. It doesn't matter who you associate with. There's always going to be a group that's going to be anti whatever that is.
Right.
It's even
and I think
with
there's a lot of retaliation.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even if you look at what we do, right? Like this, as dumb as this is, this little podcast, right? Where we just talk about things that go bump in the night and the mysteries and all that good stuff. You have the skeptics that's what they do, is they go into chat and their entire goal in life is to be 100% against whatever's being said. Now, what I find that so impressive is I've never had something where I'm like, I love this so much that I'm going to find everything on this topic and then write a comment about it. Like I've never, maybe that's a me thing, but if there's something I hate, I don't associate with it. I just move on.
Yeah. I'm like of two minds on this. Like on one hand, if someone's got such a passion about a topic that they learn everything they can about it, I kind of respect that. But then if someone disagrees with you and you can't discuss it in a civil manner, then all that respect's gone.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because anger, I feel, is like a lot of times it's a symptom of someone who's not educated on something.
Correct.
Like it takes more smarts to be kind than it does to be angry and spiteful, especially on the internet.
Here's a great example of that, Nick. And I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's not that important to me.
Right.
We did an interview and I did an interview on a guy. And there's one woman, I swear to goodness, that spends every waking hour trying to find interviews with this guy to send them messages to try to befriend them to attack that said guy.
Right.
And I've seen it with, at this point, probably 20 some, 30 some podcasts, including our own. Now, where it gets crazy to me is she has her little following, her little group, these, whatever they call themselves. But like there was a case where she brought information to my comment section. I'm like, I don't care who my guest is. You can't say stuff like that. Like you just can't put that in the comments.
Right.
I blocked it. And she sent her entire community to attack mine.
Oh, that's not cool.
And I'm like, what kind of craziness is that? Like that's to me is just insane. I'm very careful about what I say about certain people or groups and stuff like that, because first off, if you're a part of my community and you're attacking something that I don't necessarily believe in, shame on you. You shouldn't be a part of my community, because I don't condone that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Right.
But it happens a lot.
Attacking is never justified on this stuff, I don't think.
No. It's like I told someone the other day, and of course this applies to me. It doesn't necessarily apply to you, but in the United States of America, the beauty of where we live, we've had people, especially today we're recording on Veterans Day, but we've had people that has died to give us the rights that we have.
Right.
And like I told people, one of the beautiful rights we have is the freedom of speech.
Yeah.
But sometimes the most power you have is shutting your mouth when it doesn't need to be said.
Well, there's freedom of speech, and then a lot of people think that means freedom from consequence.
Correct.
You can say something and someone might not like it, and there might be some consequence to that. And in some ways it's good to be passionate about things you believe in, but if you're truly interested in changing people's minds, attacking them is not the way to go about it. I mean, I would never give in to someone attacking me on a topic. I'd just not talk about it anymore, maybe.
Correct.
Or
not only that, but
just not engage in that conversation.
Who's to say you're right?
Right.
If you're too ignorant to block, if you're so ignorant that you block your ears and say my way is the right way, but you don't ever hear what's on the other side, how do you know that you're truly right?
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened in this. Like, people were just accusing each other. Correct. Like if they thought logically, they'd be like, well, this person clearly can't be a witch. And honestly, I'm of the opinion that most people didn't believe that there was like a small segment of that town that was like, I'm terrified there's witches. But I think most of them, it was a manipulation tactic, because some of the history that I found out about this is Salem was going through something a lot like what we're going through here. And that's like, we're going through a housing crisis.
Yeah.
Like, there's not enough land. And well, now it's houses here, but in Salem, there wasn't a lot of valuable land that was going up. Like, people had huge swaths of land, so people couldn't be close to the town. So they were using that accusation of witchcraft to get rid of someone, because as soon as the last person in that family's gone, all their stuff is forfeit to the town, and they can divide that up against 3 or 4 other families who might be vying for that land. So a lot of it was to get what that family has. And then if you accuse this person's father, his son accuses your father, and now we both lost someone, and it keeps going back and forth like that. But a lot of it was for financial gain, and they can clearly show the connections with that.
That's insane.
In the documents.
Mm-hmm. That's a cold-hearted person right there.
That is a cold-hearted person. And I didn't know any of that was going on. I thought it was all fear and religious fervor, but a lot of it was financially motivated. And I think if people could get other people's houses today that way, I think they'd be doing it.
Probably.
People are real desperate.
Probably.
It
probably does happen to a degree. I mean, I don't know if this
does.
I don't know if it happens there, but like here in the States, let's use, for example, if there's something of value, the government can come in and take your land. They offer you whatever amount they want to offer you, and you either take it or you lose it.
Yeah. Eminent domain is what we call it here. Like if they want to build a highway, and sometimes they don't bother to, but they still take your land away.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I just had a thought in the US, and I think probably in Canada too. This almost did happen again, because remember when you could get people taken away to prison just by calling them a communist?
Oh yeah.
Like that was almost the exact same thing over again, except we didn't have kids flipping around on the ground.
We technically have that to this day. We have not communist, but we have a thing where you can accuse someone of being mental, and you can send them to basically the equivalent of testing grounds. And if they can't pass, if they can't pass, they get basically put in whatever these facilities are until they can come around.
See, I thought they had done away with that kind of thing. I didn't know that still went on.
They've done away with institutions as far as asylums and stuff like that. But like the closest case to this is the story of Lori Vallow.
Oh, okay.
For anyone
that name sounds real familiar for some reason.
That's the one that she was married to the guy, and then he died under mysterious circumstances because her brother killed him, and then her kids went missing, and then they found her kids, and her new husband had killed them and buried them in his backyard. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a horrible story. But she, before any of this happened, her husband called the police and said, I think my wife has something majorly wrong mentally. And they said, what do you mean? And he goes, she thinks that I'm a demon. And she thinks that my body was taken over by this demon, and she had a name for it, like Neil or something was the name she gave. But they came, scooped her up, and she had to do a mental assessment. She passed it.
Oh, okay.
And then like a month later, her brother killed him. So it just goes to show, if they would have done the correct mental assessment, it could have prevented something like that. But with that said, how many times, I don't know if you're following very many of the haunting cases here in Ohio, but we have one haunted house owner that is currently going through this right now.
Oh, is this the extreme haunted house owner that was like, he takes you sign a waiver that they can do anything to you? No. And no, not that one.
Let's just,
it's not the Mahaney house or whatever.
No, but I know about that one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
This is, there was some movies around it, relatively big ones with Ed and Lorraine series. And
oh, okay.
Like, I'm scared to say much because she goes and she sues everyone that says anything negative about her.
Oh, okay.
But like,
well, we definitely don't want to get into that.
Yeah, definitely don't want to do that. But yeah, she has said some crazy things, some allegations against different people. And now, like, they're starting to run the course, but she had taken that house that she now owns by doing like title stuff, which is crazy. I don't want to go too deep into it, but
oh, really?
It goes to show how easily that stuff can be manipulated. And we even have that now in the United States. Let's use, for example, there's ways that people can flip people's titles, sell the house, and then run with the money without you even knowing about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the problem is,
that's crazy.
Once they figure out, like, let's use, for example, someone would do it to you. They would get the title flipped into their name from you.
Right.
You wouldn't even know about it. They would then sell that house quickly for pennies on a dollar. They dip.
Right.
And now you, even though you were the owner when that happened, the other person also lost money. Now you've got a fight between you and them to get your house back.
Really?
Yes.
That's insanity.
It's insanity.
That's insanity.
It's insane. They sell insurance to prevent that from happening.
Man, that shouldn't even be a thing.
Shouldn't be a thing.
That's crazy.
If you own a home,
yeah,
you should know every single time that mortgage and title or lien has been flipped.
Oh yeah.
You should absolutely know.
Yeah, for sure.
But it happens. It happens enough to where they sell insurance for it, which is crazy.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it just goes to show that, like, you know, a few words or a few documents can be enough to get something you want from someone else. And that's sort of what was going on in Salem at the time.
Same thing.
Like, there was a lot of fear and stuff, but there was a lot of people profiting from it.
Same thing, different methodology.
Yep, exactly. Because like I said, we all know these were Puritan people. They wouldn't have traveled and risked scurvy going across the ocean on an old boat if they weren't dedicated to this idea. Because they would have just confessed overseas and stayed there.
Oh, for sure. But think about it. Whenever there's money, there's corruption. And people will do anything for money. We see it all the time. That
is true. Yep. That is true. And that's a factor that is new to me on this subject. Had you heard that before?
No. This is the first I've ever heard of it.
Yeah. So that's another factor. So I think, like, we almost had like this perfect storm where there was something happening to the kids. The kids were accusing people that they maybe didn't like or had a bad interaction with. People saw what happened to these people and they thought, well, man, I just can't get this land I need next to town. But I know someone who does. Maybe I'll accuse them. Maybe I'll get my kids to roll around on the floor and tell and accuse these people or that kind of thing.
Right.
Because it was almost always something with the kids doing that in a lot of these accusations.
Right.
At first anyway, but I think they dropped that pretense later on. Everyone was accusing everyone.
Yeah, that's kind of once, and it goes back to, I mean, look at how many times it happens now in the scams we see. Like, you look at the gift card scams that's out there. Like, after a while, word starts getting around. You go, okay, I know what that is now. Like, even places, vendors now go, how many gift cards are you buying? What are you doing with these gift cards?
Yeah.
So it becomes more difficult.
And I'm glad that they do that.
Oh, me too. Yeah, 100%. I still think that the method behind that should change, but that's just me.
Yeah. There's there's a very well-known scam that the first time I heard it, someone told me they had gotten an email about it. And it's just so preposterous that I was like, no one's going to fall for this. And it's the one where it says, "Dear sir, madam, I have taken control of your computer and I've recorded video of you doing naughty things online. And if you don't send me this much of a Bitcoin or whatever to this Bitcoin wallet address," and it's Bitcoin, like, that's complicated stuff.
Right.
And I was like, no one's going to fall for this. But the interesting thing about, like, cryptocurrency is you can trace wallets and transactions.
Right.
And out of curiosity, one time I traced it back and they were fooling like hundreds of people every day.
Oh yeah.
Were following for this.
Sure.
So I mean, I think that's another good thing that points to, like, you could have in Salem like 15 people who are just financially accusing people of things, but you're going to have 200 people in that village who are sure that witches are flying around over top of them every night.
Right. All you need is a few gullible people to fall for it to work.
Exactly.
It honestly comes down to how gullible the people are too. Like, here's a great example. Another great example. You know, one of the big things being targeted right now are podcasts.
Right.
Like podcasts like our size are being targeted by scammers.
Oh, really? What are they trying to do?
What they do is they send an email. Like a big channel right now, like I'm trying to think of a channel, like Joe Rogan. Let's use that as an example, right? Like, they would send an email address. They're using ChatGPT to sound English, very, very good English. And what the email says is I'm such and such from the Joe Rogan podcast. We found your podcast by doing X, Y, and Z, but they're doing it specific. So in our case, they'd be like, we see that you do stories around unsolved mysteries similar to the show by Robert Stack. We would love to have you on for a guest appearance. We would like to set that up via Facebook chat.
Right.
And what happens is people get excited because they're like, oh my gosh, this is big time for us. Like this could catapult us because you see the end result, right? It's a sense of greed. Yeah. But what they do is they get you to go on Facebook on the whatever their face cam version is. And what they do is they say, okay, to get this to work, what we have to do is go inside your privileges. You're going to send us a connection so as that we're part of your community, like an admin for the account.
Right.
But because you want to get on Joe Rogan, you go, well, that's kind of weird, but okay, it's Joe Rogan. So you set them up as an admin, but the privileges that they tell you to click gives them ultimate control. So they kick you out because on Facebook, it's not ran. You're running it through your separate page. So whereas Bert has a Facebook Deceptive Realities page, it doesn't have a password and a username and two-factor authorization to get in. It has, you're in this group and you're the admin, but at any point in time, I can be kicked off as admin if there's another admin.
Yeah, they take I've seen over this happen, and I didn't know if that's what was happening or not.
Yeah, so they take over the page and then they put all that crypto stuff on there, but it comes from you and it makes it sound like it's you.
Right. That happened to a local restaurant recently, in fact. And that must be what happened. Like they weren't running a podcast, but that must be how they got control of it.
Exactly how they did.
Because you have to give it to someone. You've got to give it to them. They can't take it.
They've got scripting. There was a channel that did it just recently. I think it's called I forget what the name of the channel. I'll put it in the description down below. But they covered the entire thing. In fact, they had a guy on camera telling them how to do it and stuff. And like they're sitting there talking about how they did it, but it's crazy to me that people fall into it. But much like in Salem, which is what we're talking about, there was a personal gain. Someone saw an opportunity. Yeah, there was enough that you can either intrigue people by fear or you can intrigue them by profit.
Yeah, it's fear or greed. There are two strongest things.
It really is.
Yeah,
it was Trilogy Media, by the way. I couldn't think of the name of it till now. But yeah, Trilogy Media just came out with it this weekend. I think I watched and I'm like, that's good to know because from time to time we do get some interesting emails, and I go, I wish there's a way to block this person, but there's not really a way to block them. So I'm like, whatever, just delete and keep moving. But
people have this image of a hacker that sits in a room and they take over things from you, and really most hacking happens through social engineering. It's mostly through you giving something to someone, or they trick you out of information or that kind of thing. Like all those things you see on Facebook where it's like I bet you can't name a town that doesn't have E in it or something like that, and people respond to it, and they use that as to gather lists of people who are easy marks, because they know they respond to these things that are clearly, it's easy to see it's a phishing trap.
Correct.
But these two types of people exist now, and they existed then. We have the scammers and the believers who are victims. So we have victims and predators, basically. Wolves and sheep. And I think from what I've seen recently from documents and stuff, that there was a lot of that going on too. So it wasn't all just fear, and like not everyone who was accused in good faith. So that's an interesting thing that I didn't know. Like there's a lot of stuff I learned from this that I didn't know, like how small the numbers actually were of actual guilty executions. How much of this was probably motivated financially.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And it wasn't a religious thing for a lot of this was not a religious thing at all. It was a devious thing.
Which makes this interesting because I guess it would make sense, but it never even crossed my mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the kind of stuff happens too. Like a lot of religions are started to get people's money. And like everyone, for example, if we look at the Jim Jones thing, the Jonestown thing, every one of those people that he got to follow him were believers. But you know who wasn't? Jim Jones.
Right.
So, but are you ready to go on to the next segment and see what more we can learn? This is sort of like a learning experience about a topic we probably knew a little bit about.
Absolutely. I'm down for it, Nick.
Far from Salem in Boston, Cotton Mather, a renowned Puritan minister and prolific writer, was following the events very closely. Mather was well read in European demonology and deeply influenced by a dark book, the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches. This grim tome, written in the late 15th century, laid out gruesome depictions of witchcraft and methods to eradicate it. Its authors, Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Sprenger, painted witches as the devil's foot soldiers, living among the pious and ready to destroy their souls. Malleus Maleficarum advocated brutal measures, torture, trials by ordeal, and ruthless punishments against those suspected of consorting with dark powers. Cotton Mather, an ardent believer in the witches and devil schemes, echoed these teachings in his own sermons and writings. In his view, Salem was a battleground, a ground zero, a place where God's people had to stand firm or fall to Satan's forces. It could affect the whole world. Mather wasn't a judge in the trials against popular belief, but his influence reached far. He insisted that spectral evidence be considered in the trials, claiming that Satan's minions could appear in spirit to torment others, while their bodies remained unseen. With Mather's endorsement, these spectral visions were considered damning evidence. His words strengthened the fervor in Salem, making the community more determined to root out evil, even if it meant condemning their friends and kin.
So you might be more educated in this topic, but there was a couple things in this segment that I had no idea about. The first one was Cotton Mather. Every time I'd been told about Salem, he was right there preaching and condemning people and going house to house and looking for witches. He never set foot there.
You know, when I did a little bit, not research, I was reading something on this. They said that was a big hoax, or not a hoax, but a big myth. And that it was used to attack basically his group of people is what it was. Basically, right. It's kind of like saying, hey, all of these people are bad because this is what they did. But in reality, they had nothing to do with it. Yeah. But yeah, that was a huge myth. I actually just read, what was that I read? There was something that was going, you know what? I think I was going to send it to you. It was that book that I can't say the name of it because there's a cussy word in there, but it's basically history that nobody knows that you won't believe. Right. And that was one of the things that was in there, was talking. It had a few things about the witch trial, and that was one of them. Yeah. Every time I'd ever, like even in our history classes in school, Cotton Mather was going house to house, you know, locking people up. He was the judge. He was the executioner. But think about the illustrations too. He was never there. The illustration was always of him in front of a witch that was inside the fire with the books. That was always every illustration of him. Yep. He never participated in any of that. All he did was he kept track of it, wrote letters to people and all that kind of stuff.
like, I have no doubt whatsoever that he was in correspondence with
For
him.
sure, yeah.
But the popular myth that he was there instigating and doing the whole thing, untrue.
Yeah.
He never set foot there, at least not while it was going on.
Right.
Which is shocking. Also, that book, the Malleus Maleficarum, the Witch's Hammer, every time I'd ever heard of it, that it was him that wrote that book.
That's what I thought also.
But
I didn't know that it wasn't the case at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was two other fellows that wrote it who I really had a hard time finding any information about their qualifications to write such a thing or where they come up with it, because none of that is biblical.
Right.
And I'm not a biblical scholar, but I think I feel confident saying that.
Yeah, that's correct.
That, yeah. So I don't know where they came up to it, if they claimed it was some kind of divine revelation or whatever. But yeah, I had always thought and been told that he wrote that book. Nope. He just bought a copy. He was one of them armchair detectives. He would be the modern day equivalent of
Dog, a reputable podcast.
Kind of like us.
Yeah.
Like he's looking into this stuff and then talking about it to his audience,
Yeah,
right?
100%. He a doggone reputable podcast company, Nick.
Yeah. Although he was into getting people in trouble. We ain't into that. So
I mean, listen, you pay us enough money, you want to sponsor us, and you want to get us to get some people in trouble. We're greedy, just like the rest of these folks. We'll have a modern day witch hunt.
Bert's views do not reflect Bert's views do not necessarily reflect the views of the Deceptive Reality Podcast.
Oh, come on, Nick. It was a little bit of fun. It's fine.
Yeah. just kidding. I'm in it. No, just kidding.
Oh man,
you know me better than that. I'm into it.
Heck yeah, Nick is like, he's the instigator.
Yeah, I really am. I like to play innocent though. Just don't rat me out.
It's fun.
But yeah, so that stuff I didn't know. So there was some vested interest in making him look a lot more responsible for this than he actually turned out to be.
And there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I imagine some of it's probably scapegoating.
Part of it probably, yeah. But the other part is, again, financial gain.
Yeah. Right, for sure. I can see both of those parts. Like, well, number one, after this is all over, the town was probably a little embarrassed about this, and the people in the town probably did some stuff that they really regretted.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And it's a lot easier to say, well, we can't say the devil made us do it because we were fighting the devil. Oh, Cotton Mather made us do it. It was him.
Exactly. 100%.
So,
or he had something that other people wanted.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like.
That could very well be.
Yeah. It's just the reverse of what we're doing. We're doing the witch trial. Trying to find all these guilty witches. And now they're flipping the script the other way, going, okay, well, now we're going to take your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they're next. Maybe this is when it moved to his area. Yeah. And they're like, well, this guy's got way too much power. We got to,
right,
accuse him of something, ruin his reputation.
Correct. It's not like that happens in the new age.
Yeah, that never could happen nowadays. We've learned our lessons.
Correct, yeah. Just look back in history. Just don't repeat.
Yeah, that's right. Another interesting thing, and I'm going to give you two scenarios. This might be fun. So, Tituba pled guilty to all of this, and she told all kinds of stories about black dogs and, and special powders and stuff.
And accused other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And accused other people. Now, the interesting thing, there's two scenarios here. Everything Tituba claimed was mirrored in the Malleus Maleficarum, almost word for word. So, there's two scenarios here. Did everything Tituba say line up with the Malleus Maleficarum because that book is educated and actually does know what actual witches do? and she was an actual witch? Or was her confession coached to match the existing book that everyone was taking a lot of their cues from?
If I was a betting man,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there may have been some mental acuity issues, and she was cohorted and coached to say what she said.
Right. Or even under threat of worse punishment.
The problem is where she...
I can say one thing.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the only problem with that theory is she was introducing other people into it. And I don't know that the average person back then would have accused other people unless it was something horrific in return.
Right. Unless they were a poorly treated class, like maybe a slave like she was.
Could be. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but or like, we're going to crush every bone in your hand unless you give us 3 new names. And they better be these 3 names who own the town square, the fertile field, and that kind of thing.
See, the weird thing with that is I would take the crushed hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people might not. But, in modern courts, people get a reduced sentence for flipping on other people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So that's nothing new either.
Happens
right?
all the time.
Yeah. Like, you can have 3 people guilty of the exact same crime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you can have 3 people accused of the exact same crime. One guy flips on the other 2 and he gets a year in prison. The other 2 get 10 years.
A great case of that is
they all did the same crime.
When you look at like Michael Francis and you look at when he went to jail, his business partner flipped on him and served no time. But then Michael Francis,
that stuff happens.
Yeah, he did like 20 years or something like that. But they had no tapes of him anywhere saying anything about crime or anything like that. They had nothing on it. But his business partner, when pressured, cracked and said, I'll give y'all this, but you got to let me off.
Yeah. Which, if you're really interested in justice, that's not fair.
No.
Like, that's not fair. Like, in the day-to-day thing, like, everyone who does the same crime should get the same punishment.
Correct, yeah. But that'll never happen.
But it don't work that way. And it hasn't. No. And it never has. But the other thing, too, that they introduced, because I don't know if some people were pushing back, but around this time, they introduced spectral evidence could be used in court. Because I think they were having a hard time, getting convictions on this. So they were saying, like, if someone claimed they saw, you flying through the air, then that's evidence.
Right.
Like, they were taking claims as evidence, which wasn't good either.
Correct.
But a lot of stuff going on there. Well, so I guess the point I was originally trying to make, though, is I can see there being 2 groups of people. Some people saying the people who probably coerced her confession know that she was saying stuff from the book because she'd been told to say it. But everyone about town, like the real, the people who fall for scams and stuff, they're like, she just said what's in that book.
Right.
That book must be true.
Correct.
And that gives the quote unquote justice system a lot of power.
Oh, yeah, big time. But, the justice system, it's the most unfair system. It was back then, and it is nowadays, too.
Right. It's one of those, what is it? A problem with no good solution that we know of, anyway.
Oh, for sure.
If our methods of investigation were perfect, then the justice system could probably be much better.
Well, the problem you have and the problem you'll always have is, again, it goes down to the person, right? We always say, well, this caused this or this caused that. It's not. People cause whatever the problem is. If we all just lived and thought the best to try to help someone else, we'd never run into 3/4 of these situations in life, period.
Oh, yeah. Well, we wouldn't need a legal system if everyone had everyone's best interest in mind, right?
Greed.
Which, man, that would be amazing.
Greed is 95%.
Yeah, it is greed.
And there's corruption on all sides. Yep. That's the problem. A lot of people think, and you know, I love my law enforcement people, but some of the coercion when they're in and they're saying, you know, say this or say that, or, you know, we know that this happened. Or how many times do I see those tapes where they go, we have video of you doing it, so you might as well just tell us and we'll help you. In reality, they don't even have video of it.
Yeah. Or they often say that the polygraph, they failed the polygraph when they actually did.
Correct. But like when you look at stuff like that and you think of the corruption level, I mean, a great example of that, which blows my mind that this is even a thing. And I forget what state it was in. I think it was in Florida. But they had this woman, some 20-some-year-old woman that was going to schools. She was an attractive female, and her job as the police was to talk to the teenage boys to offer them things that you shouldn't be offering minors if they could come up and give her drugs. And then they were using those to then sentence other people for drug charges.
Isn't that entrapment?
Here's what's crazy about that. People were like, that's a genius idea. But what happens if you reverse the roles? What if there's a 20-some-year-old man that's going to schools talking to minor girls doing the same thing? They would say that's sick and demented.
Yeah, that is true. I never even thought about that, really.
Same thing happens when you look at these teachers. If it's a male teacher and they're doing unsavory things with young, impressionable, young teenage girls, they get much longer sentences than vice versa. And I don't think that's fair.
Oh, yeah. No, and I think there's a lot of stigma against men even reporting that kind of thing. Because you know what a lot of people would say, oh, it's like, oh, that's a lucky kid or whatever. That kind of thing. But it's not like that. They're still a victim too.
They're 100% still a victim, whether they know it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those double standards that we get that really ends up harming everyone in the end.
And this is a prime example of it. When you look at the Salem, it's no different. Again, the things are the same. It's the methodology of how they get there that's changed.
Yeah, it's funny because they always say that if you forget the past, you're doomed to repeat it. Well, we repeat the past a lot, the time. Just different degrees of it.
Correct.
You know, a lot of the same stuff.
Correct.
But are you interested in learning a little more? I don't think there's any more shockers like that we've misunderstood history, but there's still some more information we can look at.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
In the world of the accused, life was simpler but filled with mystery. Folk remedies, charms, and harmless superstitions were part of daily life, handed down through generations. Sarah Good may have muttered curses, but they were bitter words from a desperate woman, not incantations of evil. Tituba's folk magic was rooted in cultural traditions, stories and remedies that were seen as harmless in her home country, yet regarded as diabolical in Puritan society. To many of these women, there was no evil intent, only survival. Folk magic, often labeled as white or good magic, was not feared in the same way that witchcraft was. It was a means of protection, a way to connect with nature, or simply feel a sense of control in a world ruled by strict, unforgiving laws. But the line between harmless folk practices and dark magic was thin in Puritan eyes, and they made little distinction between the charm meant for protection and a evil hex. Many of the accused witches felt bewildered, frightened, even betrayed by those they had known all their lives. They had helped these people. These people had come to them for remedies, cures, and good luck rituals. Their words were twisted, their actions scrutinized under a fearful lens now. Some prayed for forgiveness. Others fought their convictions with words and pleas. But in Salem, their voices were drowned out by a fearful congregation that saw not neighbors, but agents of Satan.
So this sort of like goes into what the people were thinking, and something they used to call folk magic, which people still have that today. Like, have you ever talked to someone? It's the equivalent of someone saying, oh, you've got a headache. You should, what's a good example? Oh, you've got a headache. You should lay down and drink some mint tea or something like that. Like, little remedies and stuff like that.
I saw it today.
That's what folk magic was.
I saw it today. There was I think it was TikTok, something I was watching, and they try to sell those books. They call it the holistic books, but there's a section inside the holistic book that it's called like spell recipes. And it's for a whole bunch of different ailments. Another thing they've got in there is like Amish holistic medicines, and one of them is for like, if you need what do they call those? I'm having brain fog today, Nick. Let's say you've got a infection. What's the medication called? Instead of like amoxicillin, what's it called?
Penicillin?
Or like a penicillin or amoxicillin. They have like the holistic stuff, or like for infections, they have the whatever it's called. Anyway, but they had this book that has all that stuff. But one of the sections they had was called like witchcraft. They don't call it witchcraft. They call it Wiccan medicine or something like that. And it's got these recipes in there. So I just saw that literally today. Because I'm like, man, I'd kind of like to have that Amish section, because them Amish, they do have some good stuff in there.
Yeah, they definitely do. And, a lot of stuff has come from their observance of how things work. And, sometimes it's not that way.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it just seems that way. Like every time I chew on this mushroom, I feel better for the next 2 days or something like that. That's folk magic. And, if someone told me that, like if I took a tea bag and put it on an eye that's got an infection, it will help it. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but I don't think they're evil for telling me that. No.
And that's honestly,
and that's what a lot of these people are doing.
Yeah, a lot of it's the holistic stuff that we see now, if we're being honest. Like that would be witchcraft back in the day. You took 7 dandelions and you put it inside of a stew made from blah, blah, blah. That's witchcraft,
Right, exactly. But up until this happened, everyone was perfectly fine with it. In fact, they'd go to these people and say, hey, could I have some advice? That spice pouch that when I put it in my stew makes everyone think it tastes really good.
Right.
What
were they called?
That
Nick?
kind of thing. And they'd gone to him for years. What's that?
What'd they call them?
The spice pouches?
No, the people that they went to.
Oh, probably like wise women or something like that, or
witch doctors.
Well, that's more like a jungle thing, isn't it?
No, I went to the witch doctor, and I mean that fall into ting tang, wada bing bang. Yeah,
I love that song, but
but they were basically witch doctors. Now, I'm sure there's different associations with it. There's obviously, when you talk about witch doctors too, there's the concept and idea of voodoo and all that stuff also, which I guess to a degree could kind of fall into this to a degree as far as practices and stuff like that goes. Because again, that goes back into what's all satanic and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people don't think that's satanic either,
Yeah.
So
I can totally see how something simple like that was like, once everything's reframed, that like anytime someone does something that is a little bit magical, it's evil.
Oh, for sure.
Like, oh crap, this lady's been giving me this thing that cures my headaches for like 10 years now. I didn't know she was hexing me. Is that why my cows stopped giving milk? Is that why my chickens aren't laying kind of thing. Like you're reframing the whole scenario.
Correct.
And these witch doctors were just like, I have helped you for a decade. Like I was the midwife for your children and stuff like that. And now you're accusing me of, cavorting with Satan under the full moon and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, yeah, I've helped you all your life and now you're getting me killed. Thanks.
Exactly. It's a nutty concept when you think about it.
Yeah. So ages ago, there was this old cookbook that had folk remedies in it that they were selling at the school. And one of the things is if you've got a toothache, you should rub hen poop on it.
I think I'm good on that, Nick.
Yeah. Does that not sound like witchcraft?
Sounds like something crazy to me. It kind of is like, I mean, let's be honest. What is that? Capucha or whatever? That coffee, is that what they call it? Capucha or something?
Oh, kombucha.
Yeah, kombucha or whatever it is.
It's like I hate that stuff so much.
Yeah, but
it's vinegar.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Then that's not it. That's not what I'm thinking of. What's the one where the bat poops out?
Chaga tea?
They poop out the coffee bean and they sell it.
Yeah, that's not a bat. That's what are they called?
What is it?
A serval? A serval?
Something poops something
It's
out.
a cat kind of thing, or a monkey.
I think you are right. I think it is a monkey, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget what animal it is. I think... Yeah. But yeah, I am not having that.
I can tell you this much right now.
But
Google probably thinks I'm the weirdest person ever because some of the stuff I looked up. The coffee bean that is pooped out of the coffee bean used is called the Kopi Luwak. I probably butchered that, by the way.
Okay.
Also known as civet coffee.
Oh, civet. That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
I was saying serval, but civet. Yeah. I mean, that stuff's super valuable, but not to me.
But listen, that could be like some witchcraft stuff. Hey, let's watch this monkey poop this bean out and then make coffee out of it. What kind of craziness is that?
Who had that idea? Who was the first to try it?
I don't know. Not me.
But
I spent my entire life trying not to poop.
Yeah, if I saw that happen in the middle of a forest and I was a Puritan, I'd be like, that's witchcraft.
That's witchcraft. That's right.
That's not right.
Yeah,
that's not right.
There's some witch stuff.
Yeah, they'd be going on my list because then my mind would get thinking, well, why are they doing that?
Right.
It's not because it tastes good. That's poop.
Yeah.
I'd be like, is this gonna let them fly? I got to get out of here. I don't want them flying after me.
Correct.
So that's how that kind of stuff happens. But I mean, maybe that person I just saw drink civet poop. Was it civet?
Civet. Civet.
Yeah.
I think, or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe that person that I just was spying on and I saw them drink civet poop was someone who had helped me for years. And then I'm like, well, now everything that they did for me looks weird.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they drink poop.
Yeah, and if I'm not the one who accuses them and someone else does, and then they say, oh, well, I saw Nick hanging out with that civet poop drinker many times, then I'm in trouble.
Right, exactly.
People are going to think I drink civet poop.
Correct.
I can't have that. I can't have that.
Well, here's the crazy thing.
So
the price of that coffee is crazy.
Yeah, it's valuable to some people who are not us.
$45 a pound.
Man, that's a lot. What's the regular coffee price? Because this is like coffee, right?
Yep. It says at retail. Oh, that's the cheapest price. $45 per pound.
Oh.
From farmed civets. All the way up to $600 per pound for wild collected beans.
Oh my goodness. How do you know that those wild ones only eat beans? They could be eating other stuff.
Well, that's why they say it's good. Is because it has hints of apparently chocolate coffee, citrus, and some other things because the enzymes that break it down.
Do you think people would enjoy the sound of a podcast host throwing up on a microphone? Because that could definitely happen right now.
Regular coffee,
I'm starting to get that feeling,
is $8 to $20 a pound. So the cheapest,
big difference,
is anywhere between $6 to twice the price for the cheapest civet coffee. And then the most expensive is a number that I couldn't even imagine. Because it's up to $600
You know,
a pound.
I try not to say too many judgmental things. Mm-hmm. I try not to take a hardline stance on stuff, especially when we're recording. But I'm going to go on the record and say that if you are drinking animal poop coffee, you're weird, and I formally accuse you of witchcraft.
Yeah. Unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe. Yeah, get out of here.
Get out of here, you lunatics.
Get out of here. What is wrong with you? You're a weird pervert.
There's going to be one person in our comments going, I love civet coffee. Losers, unsubscribed.
Well, good. Yeah, that's
good.
What we told you to do.
Yeah.
You're doing what we asked.
Dude, you peon.
Good.
You're doing what
Get
we told
out.
you. You're submissive.
Yeah, go drink poop. That's like if you were being mad at someone, you might say eat.
Yeah.
S-H-I.
Exactly.
You know.
Same thing.
But these people are like, I already do.
I drink it every morning.
I literally do that.
I'm so rich, I drink it every morning.
You can't. Yeah. You can't hurt me. I already eat and drink. I feel like I should just say the word, but you know, I'm trying not to.
Ship high in transit.
Yes, that's right. If you're doing that, you're a witch.
Yeah, you're a
formally accused.
Witch doctor.
Yeah. But let's get back to Salem and see what they're doing. You want to roll the next reel?
Let's roll the next one, Nick.
In the small, dim courthouse, the chill of fear pressed against every heart. For the trials in Salem were not only trials in name, they were ordeals. To root out evil, the judges believed they had to resort to extreme measures, ways to force confessions from even the most resolute of liars. Under the searing gaze of judges and the feverish watch of the townspeople, the accused were put through brutal tests, each meant to uncover hidden truths, to lay bare the devil's servants among them. The accused were tied in painful positions, hung by their wrists until they felt their shoulders might snap from the strain, all the while asked to repent. Some were prodded with needles as onlookers waited for the slightest twitch or gasp. Signs they had revealed guilt. They searched each accused body for the infamous witch's mark, a small mole or blemish that would be said to bleed, not blood, but a dark fluid if pricked. If any slight stain, any irregularity, was evidence enough. One test was perhaps the most feared of all, the touch test. The afflicted girls caught in their torments would writhe on the floor, screaming, eyes rolled back in horror, and so they brought in the accused. If by the touch of a suspect's hand the girl's fit subsided, it was taken as a sure sign that the accused was the witch, and the girl her cursed victim. No scientific explanation could lessen the power of what the town saw with their own eyes. The afflicted calmed, the whispers of guilt confirmed. But even a confession did not mean freedom. Those who admitted to witchcraft could still be imprisoned for months on end, with their fates uncertain. And for those who denied all charges, who clung to their innocence in the face of court's wrath, worse waited them. Convicted witches were led, trembling, to Gallows Hill. The journey was grim and silent, an unspoken sentence that stripped away hope. Shackled and disheveled, they were escorted through the town square, the eyes of their former neighbors and friends filled with a mix of fear and satisfaction. To the Puritans, these poor souls were no longer friends, family, or even humans. They were vessels of Satan, evil incarnate, and their deaths were deemed necessary to cleanse Salem of darkness. At Gallows Hill, the noose awaited them, but there were no quick deaths here, no prayers, no mercy. The noose was meant to strangle to draw out the last agonizing breaths from the condemned. They hung, slowly suffocating as the townspeople watched, whispering psalms, convincing themselves they were watching justice. A heavy silence would settle over the hill when it was over, and the bodies, like ragged shadows, would be cut down and thrown unceremoniously into shallow, unmarked graves. Not even the dignity of a proper burial awaited them. When dust finally settled, Salem was left hollow and grief-stricken, haunted by memories of friends lost and by the horrific deeds done. In the name of righteousness, the fear of witchcraft might have faded, but a deeper fear took its place, a fear of themselves, of what they had become in those feverish months, when they had let darkness inside their own hearts turn them into executioners, and some might say monsters.
Yeah, so like you were talking about earlier, most people were just hung. Like, that's what most of it was. The Gallows Hill, they hung them unceremoniously, put them in unmarked graves, which was the scariest thing, I think, at that time to Puritan people, having improper burial and not being on hallowed ground and stuff. I think that was probably the biggest disrespect you could have done them at that time.
Oh, for sure. Then you add to it, we've kind of only grazed this topic too, but think about that effects that would have on your entire family, your entire bloodline. You've been accused. Now the assumption is your family had something to do with it also. Like, what a crazy thing to have all at once.
Yeah, because like even now, when someone does something really heinous, everyone's first thing is like, what did their parents do? Why didn't they raise them right? Why didn't their friends and family see the signs? Like almost blaming the family of
and then you've
people
got the
who
kids,
do horrible things.
The kids on top of it. Hey, they raise these kids. These kids are probably into the same thing. That could hurt generations.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Plus, a lot of these kids were losing their family land and being sent off to live with relatives in distant towns.
This is just like our episode of Generational Curses, which you've not watched. You're going to want to go look at that.
It is.
It's kind of similar.
It really is, except these people didn't even do anything evil to start it out. Like this, they were... I think I could easily go on the record and say that everyone in the Salem witch trials was not guilty.
Yeah, I would say they're not guilty.
Like, yeah, I don't think a single person that was harmed there was guilty. Well, definitely not of witchcraft, but probably not of anything.
I would agree with that.
Like, yeah, other than if they had previously accused others of being witches. Because like I said, you got a lot of that. You accuse him, he accuses you.
Right. So back and forth.
That kind of thing. Yeah. Plus, you're in a lot of jeopardy in these trials that I just talked about, because their method, if you confessed, you got it was, number one, it was over for you. You didn't get all the torture and torment. You probably weren't hung.
Yeah.
But you're guilty. You're forever known as a witch. You're probably spending your entire life in a cell, which with the conditions in those cells probably was only a couple more months or something like that.
Probably.
You'd probably had a lot of bones broken and cuts and stuff from being questioned. So you're probably not going to live much longer than that one. But on the other hand, if they found a way to prove you guilty before you confessed, there was no helping you.
Right.
Like if they found a weird mole on you, evidence.
Correct.
if multiple witnesses agreed and saw you doing something witchy, guilty. And the one they talked about there was they brought in some kids that were flipping around and said, if you touch those kids and they stop flipping around, you're a witch. Well, if the young kid, they heard that, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to stop flipping around when this person touches me.
Right.
Have you seen that trick that they pull on kids in cars? The kids pretending to be asleep in the car so they don't have to get out and walk to the house.
Yes.
So they say to the father, whether I heard that if you lift a kid's hand up and it stays in the air, that means they're really asleep.
Right.
But if it drops down, they're awake. So they'll lift up the kid's hand and let it go. And their hand will be hanging out there in the air. And they're like, well, looks like they're really asleep.
Right. I've seen a couple of videos like that. It's hilarious every time I see it.
Yeah. I laugh at that every time because the kids think they're being so clever.
I watched.
It's cute, actually.
That's nature. That's nature in general.
Yeah.
I've watched this video this weekend, kind of applies, kind of doesn't, but it just goes to show it's not just our species that does that. There was some pigeons that was outside of a convenience store. I don't know if you saw this video or not.
Right.
But one pigeon was sickly, and the shop owner, the person that ran the shop, they gave it food and water. All of a sudden, other pigeons started laying in front of the door as though they were sickly to give food and water. But the funny thing is they had the cameras on them, and they're like laying there all sprawled out. Another one come in, they get ticked off, get up and peck at them. And as soon as they'd fly away, they'd fly back down like they're dying.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious.
It's funny.
I love that.
It's crazy.
It's funny and it's cute, except in Salem in the 1600s when that was getting people convicted and killed.
Right, exactly.
That's not so cute.
Not so cute. It loses its cuteness on that, Nick.
No. Yeah. But, we've sort of come full circle, and kind of the last thing I want to really touch on is, what do you think started this in the beginning? Like, these kids, did they just start flopping down? There's a theory that there was ergot poisoning in the grain that was causing hallucinations. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the most likely scenario that you've heard of?
There was
or even from your own estimation.
There was a few. I always associated this with a natural disease of some sort. I don't necessarily. Right. I feel like everyone just puts a stamp of approval on. They had this foul wheat and this caused this poisoning. I don't think that that's the case in most of these. I think what's happened is something, because back then, if you had a high enough fever, you would hallucinate also. They didn't have medications to cure some of that like they do now.
Right.
So, it could be anything. Here's a great example. Like in the area where we live this year, there is unprecedented amounts of walking pneumonia.
Oh, really?
So if there wasn't all these antibodies that, or antibiotics, that's the word I was trying to think of earlier, antibiotics, if there wasn't that kind of stuff, like think about how rampant that would grow. And then you would have fevers and then you'd be delirious. Right. And back then they could have been like, this is some form of witchcraft. Like, it's hard to say. Yeah. And back then there was such little medicines or medications and it goes back to, there was even some treatments that probably didn't work. And they're like, hey, take these 5 cloves of this and 2 of this and 7 of this and a cat's whisker and drink it and you'll be fine, which didn't do anything. But
that's folk medicine though too.
Folk medicine. That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it could have been any of that. Like I had always, like in schools, I'm sorry to say this, but our public school system is not great in Nova Scotia. In a lot of cases, we're underfunded. I don't think there's any structure. A lot of times they're always trying these trial programs. Well, they just taught it straight out that it was ergot poisoning from the wheat. But then as I got older, I was kind of thinking, well, it should have affected everyone to some degree.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, this should have been way wider spread than it was.
Correct. Yeah.
So I don't think it's that, but I think your theory makes a lot more sense. But I think once it started, people just started mimicking it, almost like that pigeon story you told.
Hallucination, or what do they call that? Mass hysteria.
Yeah, or something like that. Or that, yeah. And like, yeah. So it started out with maybe some random sickness, and then people started getting mass hysteria. And then we got on top of that people who were in it for financial gain. They're taking advantage of a bad situation. But I think that's the most likely cause.
Or think of that, some form of a hallucinogen, like kids nowadays, right? We're still talking about kids. You know, you got kids that lick the toads,
right?
And then they have their thing.
Yeah.
You know, who's to say they wasn't licking some toads back then, Nick? I mean,
well, yeah, these kids were super repressed, like.
Or yeah, or like
the
fungus.
Puritans.
Like, different kinds of, when you look at mushrooms, like mushrooms will do that to you. Like, who's to, who knows?
Magic mushrooms grow everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could have been accidental, could have been intentional.
Correct.
And they didn't want to confess to it. So they said witchcraft.
Correct. Correct.
Because their super strict families found out they were doing something to give themselves hallucinations or anything like that.
Well, we are coming full circle because
not good.
What was it we said at the very beginning, or towards the beginning? Kids will say things to get out of trouble.
Right. Exactly. And I think it just snowballed from there. I think that was the whole cause. There could have been an initial catalyst. But I think at some point those kids thought, well, either I'm in trouble or someone else is going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I doubt they thought that their parents, who had been loving in their community, that got along all the time, would start killing people. Like, I wouldn't have expected that.
I would have hoped not, but.
So, right. So I think it just got out of control. And at that point, after the first trial, they can't say, oh, I was just lying. Because what would have happened to them?
Right. Yeah, they would have been in big trouble at that point. Because again,
or
repercussions.
Yeah. Or people would have said, oh, the devil has forced them to do that to try and save his witches or something like that.
Correct.
Bearing false witness. It's not good stuff for a Puritan community.
It's definitely not. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Mama Nick likes this episode. I hope this is like her favorite / only one that she's ever listened to or will listen to. But hopefully it's an amazing one.
Well, maybe she'll get more into it. I mean, she wanted to know more about it, and I didn't feel like I could do it justice on my own. So I needed to bring in Bert as the information master that he always is to assist me with this. So she'll definitely appreciate
more like a weird point of view. And listen, Mrs. Nick, in the events that we don't talk to you again, I want to wish you a happy birthday, a happy Thanksgiving. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Easter. You guys have y'all have an Independence Day. Happy Independence Day. Happy Canadian Day. I think I'm hitting them all.
All the days. Yeah.
Happy all the days.
She's like you. She loves Christmas.
Yes.
Christmas is her zone.
A woman that I can appreciate. Because if you love Christmas,
you know what?
That's what it's all about.
Oh, she does. I bet you she loves it more than you even. And I'll tell you why. All year round, when she comes to visit and we're just hanging out and we're going to put something on the TV just while we're hanging out, we watch YouTube shows about preparing for Christmas.
Oh, that's exciting.
Old-timey Christmas, how to decorate things, recipes, all that stuff.
Well,
she loves it. And you know what? I like it too.
Well, Mama Nick, I'm going to try to one up you this year, just for the record. I bought something, and some people's going to think Bert's just over here lying because there's no way that he would have done this already. I'll have you all know this is how much I love Christmas. I was shopping on the old Amazon machine Also, Mama Nick, if you want to steal my idea, that's completely fine. I found something I have never seen before. I've seen them in stores, but I did not know that you could purchase them yourself. But it is a Christmas tree holder that rotates. Full 360.
Oh.
Now you might ask
She's
yourself.
She's going to love that idea.
Now you might ask yourself, which is the same thing I ask. Well, how the hell do you keep the cord from not tangling around the Christmas tree? It has adapters inside the thing that spins around. So when you plug your tree in with all the lights, you plug it into the base and the entire base spins around. So now you have your entire Christmas tree being shown, and it's got built-in speakers so you can play Christmas music on it.
You have almost certainly made a sale right now.
And listen, she's going to ask, I don't know how much this is. It's probably like $17,000 in Canadian money. But it's relatively cheap. In here in the good old United States of America, $50 with a 5% coupon.
Oh, wow. That's really good. And that's still 50,000 Canadian.
Oh, yeah. And she's going to ask, okay, well, my tree is such and such. It can hold up to a 9-foot tree, 120 pounds.
Wow.
That's pretty big.
That's pretty big.
It's pretty big.
Speaking of trees, she has 2 trees usually, at least.
Oh, wow. You need 2 of them.
And right. So there's got the main one in the living room, but she has another one in her kitchen, and she likes having the tree up and decorated so much that instead of taking the little tree down, she decorates it for each season.
Oh, wow.
So she can keep the tree up in the kitchen.
Think about this, Mama Nick. If it rotated year round.
You're going to make her day.
Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed this podcast. Listen, also some exciting news coming up. We're working on the Christmas special. That's going to be right around the right around the corner. Nick and I we think settled on a script that we're going to start working on. So that's super exciting news.
Fingers crossed.
And after tonight's podcast, we're also thinking about doing a good old witch hunt. Who wants to get their pitchforks, get the fires out? Let's hunt some witches down.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But we got some exciting stuff coming
poop
up.
drinkers.
Yeah, except for you freaking civet coffee drinking turds. Whatever. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this podcast, you've not hit the subscribe button, what are you waiting on? Stop being crazy. Stop being a doggone civet drinker and hit the doggone subscribe button. Also, wherever you're listening to this podcast, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and tell us in the comments down below, do you drink civet coffee? Would you drink civet coffee? And what do you think of these doggone witches? That's what I want to know about.
Yay or nay?
Well, until we see you on the next podcast, goodbye.
Goodbye, witches.
Whispers in the shadows, secrets in the air, pointing fingers in the dark, no one's safe out there. A spark ignites the fire, fueled by fear and lies. One by one they're calling names and innocence dies. Hoods pulled tight and torches high, truth is lost beneath the cries. Justice twisted, hearts turn black, there's no way to bring them back. Run and hide, the wolves are near. Innocence burns when the truth's unclear. The gallows rise, their shadows grow. No mercy here, it's a devil's show. From the ashes of Salem, voices still scream. Shadows of justice torn at the seams. Fear turns to fire and fire turns courthouse walls, echoes of the innocent who took the fall. Guilt decided by the crowd's demand, a noose tied tighter with every hand. Paranoia spreads like a wicked plague, the truth drowns out in the games they've played. History's written in blood and pain, the scars of Salem will always remain. Run and hide, the wolves are near. Innocence burns when the truth's unclear. The gallows rise, their shadows grow. No mercy here, it's a devil's show. From the ashes of Salem, voices still scream. Shadows of justice torn at the seams. Fear turns to fire and fire to dust. Innocent hearts betrayed by their trust. From the ashes of Salem, they still scream. Shadows of justice torn at the seams. Fear turns to fire and fire to dust. Innocent hearts betrayed by their trust. From the ashes of Salem,